It Comes at Night. It Comes at Night is a brand new horror film slash suspense thriller. I don't even know if I really want to call this thing a horror movie. I mean, it's marketed as a horror movie. It sets up as a horror movie. It takes place in the horror movie genre. But I don't know if I would really want to call this movie a horror movie. It's much more of a suspenseful psychological thriller, if anything. This film is directed by Trey Edward Schultz, and it stars the very talented and underrated Joel Edgerton. It stars Carmen Ejogo as his wife. Christopher Abbott and Riley Abra, I think is her name, star as this other couple, and there's the newcomer called Kelvin Harrison. He plays the son of Joel Edgerton in this movie. The trailers don't really give you much to go on, so what I will say about the story in this one is that it's kind of a post-apocalyptic type of movie. There's a mysterious virus that has wiped out a large portion of the population, or at least you would think it has, and Joel Edgerton is just trying to protect his family. While they're just out there surviving, they run into this other family. Christopher Abbott and his family, they run into each other and they try to help each other. Both families try to survive next to each other. And then as the tension and the paranoia winds up and you start to discover that maybe neither of these families are telling the entire truth about each other, it sets up as this big psychological thing where the more scared this family gets, the worse the people get, and so that's really the crux of the movie. By the way, guys, is it more scary or less scary when all you see is darkness and you don't actually see me? I was gonna do a cliche jump scare for you guys. I am not going to do that. That is not me. I would never want to do a cliche jump. Guys, I decided that doing the entire review in the dark would probably make my balls itch and my skin crawl, and I just didn't want to do that, so I'm here in the flesh. Like I said before, this is not a conventional horror film. In fact, it's really not even a horror film at all. It's much more psychological in its execution and its concepts. There is great tension and great suspense woven throughout the narrative in this film, but overall, it's not a horror movie, and I think that is why there is a disconnect between the critics and the audiences right now, because audiences go into the movie and they're expecting like monsters and they're expecting something evil, and It Comes at Night. The title seems to indicate that there is something coming at night. I think the title itself, without getting into spoilers, is really more referring to the monster inside of us and the monster that comes out when we get scared and when we get desperate. This movie really explores the psychological underpinnings and the psychological trappings of fear and how that can change people. The production design, the cinematography, everything in this film looks beautiful. This is gorgeous cinematography. Everything is well lit. The lighting and the coloring and everything. It just looks amazing in this movie. I gotta shout out Brian McAmber as well. Brian McAmber crafted one of the best musical scores for any film that I have seen in 2017 so far. This musical score is very haunting. It's very melancholic. A score that really emphasizes the atmospheric tension that permeates the entire movie. I've heard people say that musical scores can seem like characters themselves, like the musical score can come alive and it can seem like its own character. That's what the musical score in this film was. The performances all around were tremendous. Really, the best thing I can say about the performances in this movie is that every actor and actress felt so real. Joel Edgerton, as I said, he's underrated. I really loved him in this movie. You really do feel like he's a guy who's very cautious, he's very suspicious, he's very paranoid, but you also understand that he's a very committed family man and he's just trying to do whatever he can to save his family. You could say that about both families here, and I would say the biggest newcomer that shocked me the most was Kelvin Harrison, who I believe plays the younger kid in this movie. He was great, and a lot of the movie is seen through his eyes and through his viewpoint. I mean, he's not the main character or anything. It's just you really do understand how he feels and everything more than you understand how everybody else does. What this movie really has going for it is it's got a great sense of ambiguity to it. There's so many unanswered questions in this movie. This movie asks questions and makes you ask questions, and it doesn't necessarily have to answer all of them. It kind of stays its own thing and doesn't just lean one way or the other, black and white, red and blue, whatever. It doesn't actually show you what you're questioning. It just kind of allows you to question and think and fill in some of the blanks for yourself. There's a lot of dream sequences with these transitions that fade to black, so you're not really sure if what you're seeing is a dream or if it's actually happening. There's a lot of ambiguity set up between these two families where you don't know which family you really should trust, and it seems like both families are hiding things. There's ambiguity set up about this whole post-apocalyptic world. You have so many questions and they don't really go overboard in terms of exposition. So many questions questions about this virus and about how it started and where it came from and what it's called and all this stuff and how it works, and they don't really answer a lot of that. They really keep you, no pun intended, in the dark so that you can kind of think for yourself, and it's so refreshing to see a film trust its audience with the questions that it's asking. Having said all of that, I do have some issues, and I also completely understand why there are some people who hate this movie. I only have a few issues with the movie. One of my issues is the dream sequences. I do appreciate the ambiguity that the dream sequences lent to the film, and I do appreciate the dream sequences for the way that they kind of heighten the paranoia in your own head as you're watching these people go through these dreams. At the same time, I do feel like they went a little bit too far in the dream sequences. I feel like there was a few too many of them, and in some of them they relied a little bit too much on jump scares. I also think that some of the questions that they set up in this movie don't have the payoff that I think they were intending. And it's not like plot hole questions. It's not like you're like, oh, well, that doesn't explain anything. That's a huge plot hole. It's more like there's some ambiguous things that are set up that aren't really delivered on, and you just kind of feel like, okay, well, they kind of built it up and then they just kind of left us hanging, and sometimes that can be a bit frustrating. Guys, I am shocked and stunned to tell you that It Comes at Night is probably one of my favorite films of the year. It looks gorgeous. The performances are amazing. The musical score is amazing. It's very haunting, intention-filled, and atmospheric. I love the philosophical and psychological underpinnings of this movie and how it deals with fear and desperation and the kind of monsters that people can turn into when they have nothing left to lose. And as a result, It Comes at Night, it comes in at Superman Prime because I just don't know how else to feel about this film. If you do watch the trailer for this movie, you're probably going to walk out disappointed. There was a whole bunch of people in my theater that got up and started bitching about the movie as soon as it was over. You gotta understand, this is a movie, a horror movie, that kind of appeals to a different type of crowd. So guys, have you seen It Comes at Night? Let me know what you think about it down below, and let me know if you would have wanted me to do the entire video in the dark. It would have gotten awkward after a while, no doubt, and I would have thrown a few more scares in there, but let me know what you think. As always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.